All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Charles Marlowe from Millennial Trades. The markets today were way down. Futures were way down this morning. It was actually a pretty shocking move because everything was looking, it was looking all right, like in the pre-market. This is what I was watching. Remember, I sold those Amazon calls that I was holding yesterday, got rid of them, didn't want to hold them overnight, didn't want any overnight exposure. So the pre-market, this is like, we're talking maybe 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning. It's looking pretty good, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I'm probably going to regret selling those Amazon calls. Well, come to find out, in the pre-market, the market started crashing. You guys saw this. We got the jobs report today, the non-farm payrolls report, and even though the least amount of jobs have been created since, I think, April of last year, I think is what it was. It might have been 2020, actually. I've got some notes here, but I think it was, it's not even like the numbers were that good, but they were better than expected. They came in better than expectations. And so the market did not like this. The market completely tanked. NASDAQ, S&P 500, they're both down on the day as well, at least the futures, right? We're down something like, I think it's like 0.37%, 0.4%, something like that on both of them, S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. And the news about the non-farm payrolls, the reason this was bearish, right? I mean, it's the least amount of jobs that have been created since 2021. But the real problem is that they came in better than expected, that they didn't come in lower. And the reason this was bad news is because that indicates that the Federal Reserve's interest rates, or the pace of their interest rates, is going to continue to have to maybe even accelerate. All right, I've seen people calling for potentially a full percentage point. So that would be a 100 basis point rate hike in December. Why not? Right, especially with this new information that we have that the economy is still technically creating jobs. It's adding to this supply imbalance that the Federal Reserve has talked about in the labor market. This was one of Jerome Powell's main reasons for wanting to continue the interest rate hikes, at least continue some sort of pace, whether it's 50 basis points, 75 basis points, and they're going to continue this into the next year because there's huge imbalances between supply and demand in the labor market. According to Jerome Powell, there's like 1.7 jobs for every one of us. So if you want a really shitty job, there's one out there for you. I mean, these are the kind of jobs we're talking about. We're not talking about high-paying, high-skilled, jobs with any sort of future. We're talking about, really low-wage jobs, difficult jobs, manual labor jobs. That's what we're talking about when we talk about the labor market. And so there's apparently more jobs out there than there are workers. I told you guys about this a couple days ago when we were talking about the Jerome Powell's speech. You know, he blames COVID deaths and lack of immigration for this supply imbalance, which I don't know. Go figure. But Janet Yellen as well came out with some really interesting comments about the inflation, and it's another example of this back and forth. I don't think the Federal Reserve exactly knows. I think they're still studying inflation. I mean, they've said this, that they don't really understand inflation. But Janet Yellen comes out today and says that it's basically the consumer's fault. She said that during the pandemic, people were working from home. They were buying home office supplies and furniture. They were building new decks. They had all this money that they were spending and consuming, and that's where all the inflated prices came from. But as Peter Schiff rightly points out, what she fails to mention is where the consumers got all of that extra cash during the pandemic. I mean, you really can't make this stuff up, guys. These people, I know most people probably will believe that. I may have believed that if I had heard that a couple of years ago. But when you start following this thing and you start realizing what Fed speak is, what Fed double talk is, and you start understanding the structure of the Federal Reserve and how the propaganda ministries of the Federal Reserve work, they put some stuff out there so that the layman will kind of just buy into it. But you really got to read past You got to read in between the lines every time with these people. And you know, I don't want this channel to be super anti-Fed or super pro-Fed, right? As far as our government is concerned, the whole argument about inflation and whether or not inflation is good or bad, that argument was won 100 years ago. Same thing with the central bank argument. Now, a lot of people think that we could potentially see decentralized monetary systems, but the Federal Reserve, all right, with their interest rate hikes and the way they're trying to battle inflation, they want things like unemployment up at 5%, because that would mean the supply imbalance between the labor market and the job openings is getting smaller if the unemployment is going up. And so basically they have to suck all the jobs out of the, not all the jobs, but they want to suck a lot of these extra jobs out of the economy by raising the borrowing costs, raising the cost of money for businesses. And it is going to be uncomfortable, right? This inflationary period, the high interest rate period, it is going to be uncomfortable. But for the people that are stacking the cash, they are going to be rewarded. And this is going to be a phase, some sort of, I don't want to call it a cycle, but a phase that's probably going to last well into the next year, if not 2025. I mean, that's what Jerome Powell said, was that they need to get the job done and they need to just continue so that they don't have to go back and try to, you know, fix it years down the road. And he said that we won't really know if we've reached the 2% average. And this is what was really big this week for me, was that Jerome Powell gave us a little bit of an insight as to how they're figuring out the 2% average. He said that it's probably going to be over at least a 5-year economic cycle. You know, so if they were at near zero rates back in 2020, 2021, well, they're going to raise the rates and keep the rates very, very high to bring up their average. So just consider this when we're thinking about investing or how we're going to position our trades and stuff in December and into the next year. That is their goal, right? That is their goal, is pretty much, I don't want to say full down economic meltdown, but an economic destruction of some sorts, because you have to get the inflation down, according to them, right? According to what the Fed says. So the interest rates, they're going to hold them for quite some time. That's my outlook right now, is that, and it won't surprise me if we do 75 basis points or even a full percentage point rate hike in December. That won't surprise me the least bit. And I think, again, going back to the non-farm payroll numbers coming out better than expected, the Fed's going to want to really clamp down on this and make sure they're sucking out the jobs by raising the cost of borrowing. So I really hope that makes sense. I'm trying to explain this because it took me a very long time to sort of even begin to comprehend some of this stuff. I don't even totally understand how it works, but I'm pretty sure that's how you're supposed to articulate these concepts. So let's move on to BlackRock. There is some liquidity issues at the world's biggest financial asset manager. There's liquidity issues. They've basically put halts or restrictions on withdrawals. And so it shows us that something is going on. And then when you start looking into the news about this, BlackRock had exposure to FTX. They're claiming it's only, I think it's like 24 million, but Sequoia had like hundreds of millions of dollars worth of exposure. So if BlackRock has a lot more exposure than they're admitting to right now, you know, we could see something still ripple across markets. I'm hearing about like Truist Bank and even Key Bank, people unable to access their accounts online. I pulled out cash today on all this type of news. I was like, I just want a few hundred more dollars cash that I have access to. So I pulled out some more money. I'm building a stack. Not obviously you need enough money to trade. You need enough money in the bank to pay bills. You probably want to keep a little bit of a savings, especially if you have a credit union, because those are relatively safe. But diversifying bank accounts. I have 3 or 4 different banks that I use on a regular basis, that I keep money in all of them, because if one fails, well, at least you have a couple more that you can, or even if one's having tech issues, or let's say there's a hacking. That was another rumor, was that there was this mass-wide hacking at Truist Financial, and this is why people couldn't access their accounts. Well, you know, if you get your entire paycheck or whatever dumped into Truist Financial and they go offline, you know, I'm just using them as an example. Supposedly Truist Financial has really good, you know, really good numbers, balance sheets, everything's all right. But that, you know, there was a hacking, that's what the rumor is, and people weren't able to access their account. But if that happened to you, well, at least you have another bank account if you've diversified your cash into different banks. But with BlackRock's liquidity issues, I can't help but wonder if it has something to do with maybe the, not just the FTX, but we have several states, Florida included, Florida being the most recent, that are pulling hundreds of millions of dollars. It might actually be billions of dollars. I brought the article up here. Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis is pulling $2 billion, I'm sorry, not hundreds of million, $2 billion from BlackRock in the largest anti-ESG divestment. And ESG is environmental, social, and corporate governance. So, you know, Ron DeSantis is basically telling BlackRock, you want to focus on profits, maybe we could invest here. But if you're going to focus on wokeness, you know, we just can't invest in companies that are putting wokeness above profits. That's what Ron DeSantis said. And if you go to BlackRock's Instagram, just follow them on Instagram. I mean, this company is corny as hell. It's so corny. Just look at their Instagram posts. I mean, they are so desperately virtue signaling for approval or, you know, just to, I guess, they're desperately trying to deceive America and the entire world. I see through it. You see through it, right? It's so corny what they're doing on, I mean, it's patronizing, demeaning, and demoralizing what they're doing to people and different groups of people through some of their posts. But that's my opinion, right? I could be wrong. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you like BlackRock. Maybe you think BlackRock is a progressive, democratic company that supports, you know, democratic socialist ideas. Because some people really believe this. So a lot of the people, I guess, that work for BlackRock actually believe this. But again, go to BlackRock's Instagram. I know I'm ranting here about it, but it is so corny what they're doing over there. Where are my notes? So yeah, let's look out for liquidity issues, not just at BlackRock, not just at Truist Financial or any of these banks. You know, be aware that this could happen. It even makes me a little nervous about how much money I keep in the trading account. If you keep 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 grand, 20 grand in your trading account, well, what if the exchanges, what if the brokers start having liquidity issues? How do you get your cash out? It's something we all should think about. Silver and gold had big moves today, guys. Big moves. I actually wanted to go and buy some physical silver today, and I didn't because I went and checked the chart. And I was like, oh, silver's up big, like $23. Gold, I think, is near 1,800 if I'm not wrong about that. So some huge moves there. I think there's still some room to the downside. It's got a sort of, silver especially needs to flesh out maybe this kind of reverse head and shoulders pattern. It's kind of like a double, like two, it'd be like 4 shoulders, 2 on each side. But there is kind of a little bit of head and maybe a left shoulder could form. So I am going to be waiting for pullbacks, but I want to go buy coins with the king's face on it. I still do not have any coins yet that have the king's face on it. So you guys let me know, have you bought any King Charles, coins from, Britannia's or what's the one in Australia? Kangaroos? Are they called kangaroos? I think there's a kangaroo. Koalas. They might be, no, they're not koalas. They might be koalas. It might be a koala on the Australian coin. But regardless, I want King Charles's face on the coins. I'm tired of buying coins with the Queen's face on it. I mean, no disrespect to the beloved Queen, but it's time to get some King Charles Britannias up in the stack. What do you guys think? Have you been able to find any? So yeah, the markets are freaking out because basically the indication from the economy is that the rates are not high enough, that we haven't gone high enough, we're not going high enough fast enough. That's why the markets are freaking out the way that they did. So the last thing we'll kind of talk about here, I want to get a little bit conspiratorial with some of this TikTok news, but before we do, there is the idea that we're in a recession right now. All right. I've heard this term thrown around about a stealth recession, that we've been in a stealth recession for the last year at least, and that it's going to get much worse. You know, you're talking about the signs are kind of there, right? The currency crisis that we've seen in the UK, in Japan. You've got the dump of the oil reserves, Biden's oil reserve dump, you know, just depleting our energy supplies for what? For prices just to continue to climb, really. And we haven't gotten anywhere long term on gas prices. And, you know, you have people like Janet Yellen blaming the consumer for all of the inflation. So it's obvious that something is going on here, right? We could be on the verge of a huge fundamental change in the monetary system. I don't want to call it a collapse or a meltdown. It might kind of express itself that way at first, but maybe that's by design. And then later on down the road, maybe they can move to zero interest rates, right? We could see that in maybe 4 or 5 years, zero interest rates, negative interest rates, and then they suck the cash out of the system and put us on digital currencies. But are we in a stealth recession? Did the recession begin months and months and months and months ago, and the mainstream media is just kind of kicking it down? Like not just the mainstream media, but the Federal Reserve, all the banking and financial elites, they're telling us that we can avoid a recession. That's what the soft landing is. High unemployment, or 5% unemployment, with no recession. Just like they said, inflation was transitory, just like Russia collusion, just like weapons of mass destruction, are we in a recession and they're covering it up? You guys let me know what you think about that in the comments section down there. Really, I guess with Peter Schiff, what I heard him say on Laura Ingraham's show was that what we really need is big cuts in government spending. That's the only way to really fix a lot of this. It's not even necessarily lowering taxes. We need huge cuts in government spending. And we're probably not going to get that. So let's just be realistic here. And this is why, you want to have some cash outside of the banks. You want to have gold and silver. You want to be acquiring new skills when it comes to finance. I mean, I am so glad that I took a chance and started looking at the markets a couple of years ago, not knowing anything about it, having literally zero financial education or really awareness or understanding. I mean, my personal finance awakening happened very late in life, like 31, 32 years old. And I don't know, just something started clicking. I've told you guys this story before, but when COVID happened and we got the crash in 2020, that's really what woke me up. And I started looking at the stock market. So it's a long process, but I think if we're focused on becoming more financially educated, more financially, aware, economically aware, it's rewarding because you're learning something new, but it's also beneficial because it can help you make money, right? It's more than just studying history or studying politics. It's like when you study business, finance, economics, you can actually figure out, hey, maybe I can figure out a way to profit here. So that's why I think everybody should at least start taking a little bit more of a look at the markets than maybe you have in the past. So with TikTok, we got to talk about TikTok, right? I saw this on Breitbart, and Breitbart is reporting that TikTok is being used by the CCP to push divisive political videos, right? And this is coming from Breitbart. Yes, I think TikTok's probably being used in a similar manner to, and this is one way foreign nations could exploit the American population and kind of, weaken us by flooding the internet, flooding social media with videos that to make the politics here domestically more divisive, more polarized, right? I could definitely see the Chinese Communist Party doing something like that. And, and they're so unified as far as their party, their government, a lot more unified than the United States' political system is in some ways, right? At least on like party lines. So they may see that as a weakness to try to divide us. But what about all the quote unquote American social media companies like Twitter, like Instagram, like YouTube? You don't think they're pushing out divisive videos to, quell the American population's anger and just sort of subdue us and control us? They're absolutely doing that. Like, I look at my feed. This is how, like, when I look at my feed, I can't believe YouTube is recommending me so many of these videos that they think I want to see, right? Like the Trump clips, the Trump supporters, just all the commentators, the Mark Dices, right? I see all this stuff that used to get buried in these algorithms a year or two ago. All of this stuff is popping up in the Shorts feed and on Instagram on the Reels feed. And I really do think, this is why I'm kind of excited about making content again, because I do think there is opportunity in the Shorts and in the Reel algorithms to, expose yourself to a bigger audience, right? It's kind of hard to do that with long formatted videos these days. So if you are on social media, really consider making Shorts and stuff, because I've been doing a lot better on Shorts than I have with longer formatted content, but I have to make the longer formatted content because, it's part of what we do here. But the Shorts and the Reels, they kind of advertise your channel. But as a consumer of this kind of content, I'm sure the algorithms are programmed in a way that are not necessarily for our benefits, right? And we think about how untrustworthy Mark Zuckerberg is, or Jack Dorsey, or even Elon Musk, or these people at YouTube. It's like they've been doing the same exact thing, right? They are politicizing us. They're trying to polarize us. They're trying to make us weaker, and they've been doing that. We've known about that. So for Breitbart, and Breitbart included, Breitbart is part of the problem. And I follow Breitbart because it's kind of funny. I like that they troll some of the people on the left. Like, it's just entertainment, but it's trash. It's complete fucking garbage. You can't make a dime following Breitbart News, right? But this is, the kind of information that's presented to the American public. Just stuff that's super politicized, super polarized. They get you caught up in these echo chambers. They just want you mad at the other side. They want us all to pick a side. I ain't picking a fucking side, except the side of freedom and liberty and capitalism, the Constitution, right? These kind of things, I think all of us can agree we want to preserve. Yeah, I mean, really, a lot of this, I know I'm always talking about the finances and the economics and, coming up and figuring out ways to make money. But at the end of the day, there's not even a financial solution to this. There's definitely not a political solution. But finances, that can only take you so far. The only real solution is spiritual. Following God, following Christ, and, every day participating in the rituals and in the sacraments that help you to stay close to God. So that's definitely something that I'm trying to focus more on. I've been going to a lot of Orthodox classes and Bible study classes, participating in my choir, going to church every Sunday, trying to be around like-minded people on a spiritual basis, participating in all kinds of ecclesiastical events and activities. That's the real solution. I'm telling you guys, that is the solution. Yes, it helps to have a way to trade, to have a way to make money without having to always rely on some employer. That's really nice, but the spiritual foundation in life, that is going to be the real solution to all of these problems that we think can be solved politically. But it's all still very exciting to follow regardless. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. So let me know your comments in the comment section down below. Follow me on Instagram at Millennial Trades. I didn't get a chance to really talk much about my trade today, but I posted a lot of good clips from my trade this morning. It's all on Instagram at Millennial Trades. If you guys aren't following me there, you're probably missing some of the content because I don't post everything on the YouTube channel because it's just easier to post on Instagram stories. But I'm posting real stories, all that kind of stuff. We're on Rumble. I made that announcement yesterday. We are on Rumble and we're on BitChute. So Follow me on some of these other social media platforms as well, especially if you're there. And for the people that follow me on Twitter, thank you. I appreciate it very much. I saw that and I followed all of you back. Follow me on Twitter from this video and tell me it's from this video and I will follow you back. And with that, I'll see you guys on the next video.